Hi there. So content warning for this video for mental health conditions, neurodiversity, disability, and suicidal ideations. Thanks. I haven't posted content to this account in a while, but I'm just editing something and I came across a quote that really is helping me process and unpack a couple things in my life right now. So it's part of a workshop that I did on neurodiversity. And this quote was said by an individual, Jim Sinclair, who founded Autism Network International, or ANI. And then I think down at the bottom of this workshop, or at the end of the workshop, we go over history of what that organization is, but I'm not down there yet. I'm just at the quote. So I just want to read it and hold space for myself, for other people who are experiencing similar, I guess, lack of understanding or empathy, or maybe even as far as compassion, but certainly just some sort of misunderstanding about, in this case, Jim is speaking to people who are diagnosed with autism or are autistic. But I think that we can use his words and critically think about how that applies to disability, mental health conditions, which are disabilities, and any other kind of neurological condition. Sorry, one sec. I know that I don't have to say one sec because I can literally just stop the video and start recording again. So I'm just gonna move my little setup here. So the quote, I'm just gonna read it from my script because even though I created all this information, that was a long time ago, and even if it was like even today that I wrote this content, I would still need to read the script, because one of my access needs is that I need to read from a script. So not all the gaps are caused by my failure to share other people's unthinking assumptions. Other people's failure to question their assumptions creates at least as many barriers to understanding. The most damaging assumptions, the causes of the most painful misunderstandings, are the same now as they were when I was a child who couldn't talk, a teenager who couldn't drive, and a college student who couldn't get a job. Assumptions that I understand what is expected of me, that I know how to do it, and that I fail to perform as expected out of deliberate spite or unconscious hostility. That's the end of the quote. That breaks them a lot, but I'm gonna process and unpack that and maybe ask, if people what they kind of take from that. I mean, when it comes to functionality and capacity and spoon theory and all of these things that we maybe know exist in the world, but unless they actually affect us, might not understand the definitions or the logistical kind of costs of those like what you consider a failure, or not even to that threshold, what you just might consider as someone being lazy or unproductive, and even people that care about you, like think those kind of things, even like, because they just don't know. People don't know what disability looks like, and that puts like the onus on us as disabled people, to kind of like come out again and again and again about being disabled and remind people like, hey, even though like I'm on a soccer team and sometimes I can play for, a couple minutes at a time, I'm still gonna need people to understand that it's not always like that. Sometimes I can't even walk at all, and that's like the spectrum of functionality, different within the person, within the disability, within how their day is going, their life is going. Either something as like maybe people who, and this is maybe one example, but people when it's raining just put up an umbrella and walk along. And I'll tell you, as someone who experiences visual difficulties, when it's raining, my vision is compromised to the point where I think I'm probably being unsafe by being out in it, because I just cannot see well enough. And the sensation of being wet in my neurodivergent mind just sucks. And like, yes, people get wet and struggle with seeing in the rain and all of these things, but it's not to the same degree as someone who is limited by disability. Autistic people aren't disobeying people or deliberately failing people. They are living in a world that operates differently than the world that other people are in, and thus they can't always do the same things in the same ways that other people do them. Constantly being misunderstood and told that behavior is quote unquote bad. And I put it in quotes like that because bad is a very, it's a word that people self label what it, like they people have this column is bad and this column is good, and that's self awareness. And it's good to know what you consider good and bad. But when we talk about good and bad behavior, back to the comment about someone like being back to my own comment where I was like, yeah, people who are considered lazy because they're not able to work as fast as you or do the same things that you're able to do, or do the same things that even they used to be able to do. Lazy is labeled as bad in our culture because it is against the capitalistic model of what success looks like, but also something just like that society expects and assumes is like the baseline. But disabled people have a really different baseline. So constantly being misunderstood and told that behavior is bad in the societal idea of what bad is has devastating effects on people's mental health, leading to feelings of isolation, low self-esteem, anxiety disorders. And I'll go back and put a trigger warning for suicide and suicidal thoughts. And this says like leading to feelings. I mean, a lot of people feel isolated and not great about themselves and anxious, and if they suffer depression and suicidal ideation, it doesn't just lead to feelings of these things, it actually like increases. Again, talking about the baseline, like everyone's baseline is different, and our baseline, disabled people, people with mental health, and people who are neurodivergent, mental health conditions, sorry, and or neurodivergent, our baseline is already like at a 4 or 5. So if we escalate to the point where it becomes an emergency or a crisis situation, that's just because we're being misunderstood. It's just because people don't get it. It's just because in a lot of ways it doesn't feel like people want to get it. Yeah, and doing the labor of teaching that is a really hard thing. But I think I want to I don't know. I said a couple times that I want to come up here and talk, but I keep not being able to do it. I don't know if I had a last thought here or not. I don't know. I mean, being neurodivergent, disabled, all of these things is not necessarily bad. We're just different, and differences are just differences. They're not like deficits. Our differences other us in big and small ways every day over our entire life, and that is exhausting. So yeah, that's the 10 minutes that I just recorded, and I hope you all are being kind to yourself. And after, it was just a long weekend, but I don't know when I'm actually going to get this up. But I hope you had a nourishing long weekend. I hope I can come in here and talk to you more. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.
Here is the Any site. Link in comments if you wanted to do a deep dive.